AdvoKAYte, holding healthcare accountable. This podcast is my way of sharing what I've learned about the mistakes, the cover-ups, and the ways we can all protect ourselves. We're all in this together. Hi everyone, it's Kay Van Wey, your host of AdvoKAYte, holding healthcare accountable. Thanks for coming back for another episode. I'm super excited to have as my guest today Dr. Bruce Herman, who is a board-certified plastic and reconstructive surgeon. Welcome, Dr. Herman.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited about this. We share a lot of common interests, I understand.
Well, we do. As I've said before, reasonable people, reasonable minds can have reasonable conversations.
Absolutely.
It used to be that doctors and lawyers were kind of mixed like oil and water, but I find more and more that there's a lot of common ground.
Yeah, I definitely think so. But yeah, that was the old joke, right? Lawyers and doctors.
Right.
Like always against each other. Not always true.
Exactly. Well, listen, I just want to jump into it. Who knows where this conversation may take us?
Where could it go?
But I think, you doctors like you see a lot of things that we also see. And good doctors like you are like, yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, that's a problem or whatever. So I want to talk about some of those things.
Sure.
The first thing I want to talk about is board certification. So one thing that we know is that board certification is the gold standard for all physicians in the United States.
Yes.
And we also know that non-board certified physicians comprise a disproportionately larger percentage of malpractice claims.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And yet, not every patient necessarily knows what board certification means, who certifies, and why it's important. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is very, very important, and even more so in my specialty because you have a lot of fake boards out there. But, board certification to me is kind of the end all be all because it's even above your training. Like there's training programs that are recognized by the ACGME, which is the institution that recognized that, okay, this training program in plastic surgery or cardiology or whatever is legitimate, right? To get your board certification, it is understood that you went to an ACGME program, but in addition, you have to take testing and show cases that you did. So to me, like the board certification is even a higher level of competency than I just went to a dedicated program. The problem is that there are now boards out there that are not considered legitimate. And there is an institution called the American Board of Medical Specialties, which recognizes certain boards. And the reason you have that is because hospitals want you to be board certified, and they want you to be board certified by a legitimate board. So the ABMS recognizes which boards are legitimate. But if you go and you ask a patient, which board is the proper plastic surgery board? Nobody has any idea. Even if you ask another doctor, they likely have no idea. But what will happen is you get these kind of, bad actors out there that will say, oh, I'm board certified, but it's not the right board. But they'll put it up on their website. Patient doesn't know. They kind of get duped into thinking that this person is legitimate, and then bad outcomes happen.
So what advice do you have for patients? Like, should they go to the ABMS website and look for what is the sanctioning board for each medical specialty?
So it depends on where you're at. Like if you're in a hospital, within reason, you can take it for granted that the doctors in there have the proper board certifications. And for the most part, like 99%, that's true because I'm actually on credentialing committee. I've been on a medical executive committee for like 12 years now. So our job is to make sure that when somebody wants to apply for facilities that they're properly trained and they're properly board certified. And if they're not, they won't have privileges. So those people will not be, the patients that come won't have to worry that someone in our facility isn't properly trained or boarded. Where you get into trouble is when you do stuff like in a doctor's office where there is not that oversight and regulation. And especially in my field of plastics and aesthetics, it's a massive, massive problem because a lot of people will have office procedure rooms, office ORs, which do not have that regulation. Yeah. So if you're talking about non-plastic specialties and you're going to a hospital, you're probably fine. If it's stuff that's in a doctor's office, then yeah, especially if it's procedural, you would like to know that the person is properly trained. The ABMS will list out those proper board certifications, and that way you know that your physician actually has one of those.
Has it and has recertified.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, every
Yeah.
10
Keep them correct.
years, I
Yes,
think.
10. I just did mine a few years back. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I've heard doctors say that the next time if they're getting to a certain age,
Yeah, right.
my recertification comes up on X date, and that's my
That's when you
retirement
retire.
date. Yeah.
It just depends on the board. Like ours is not too bad. It's funny, they're all different, and not to derail it, but like the plastic board is very tough. Like it was much harder than the general surgery boards, but oddly enough, the recertification is not hard.
Yeah.
I guess they say if you passed it once, you're good. Just do your yearly CME credits, and we'll make the recert not that bad. But yeah, people do plan their retirement around it.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, this is what I would wonder. If a doctor is not board certified by the ABMS, certifying organization, I could think of two reasons. Number one, they passed a residency program in their specialty area, but they could not pass the exam, and that would be a red flag. The other thing I could think of is they may even be board certified by ABMS in another specialty, but they're veering out into something that they didn't train for and that they're not certified in.
Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly what happens, especially in my specialty of aesthetics and plastics. This is a tip off. So you want to know the red flags. When someone says they're triple board certified, you need to be worried. I would never say something like that. I mean, I did my general surgery boards. I didn't keep them up, but I'm not gonna say I'm double board certified. Only one board matters, and it's the American Board of Plastic Surgery. When you get people saying like I'm triple board certified, and you look, it'll be like, well, I'm certified by the Board of Internal Medicine and the Board of Cosmetic Surgery, and then the Board of Facial Aesthetics, and the last two are fake boards. They're not recognized, and the first one has nothing to do with plastic surgery, but they'll be like, oh, triple board certified doctor here to do your cert. And people think, oh, with triple boards, that's got to be good, right?
Right. Yeah. Three's better than
Three's
one.
better than one, isn't
Yes.
it? Well, not always.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's it's a common tactic, and it's sad. Like to me, that's fraud. Like it may not be fraud by the legal definition, but it is fraud. They are pretending to be something that they are not, which is a competently trained surgeon.
So I want to ask obviously I know the answer, so it's going to sound like this is a really naive question, but I'm going to pose it
Right. You want to see
this way.
my
I want to see your reaction.
Absolutely. Bring it.
I grew up in an era where I watched Dr. Marcus Welby on television. And Dr. Marcus Welby, because I'm a lot older than you are, Dr. Marcus Welby was just this gray-haired, well-intentioned, grandfatherly type doctor. And that's the image that we grew up with. People had relationships with their family doctor. Oh, Dr. So-and-so delivered your mother and delivered you and is going to deliver your baby or whatever. And doctors were the pillars of our society. And now even you have referred to people like, I don't remember what you called them, but they're doctors that are up to no good.
Yeah.
Why? What shifted and why?
Man, that is a large question. I mean, you have to at some point think about the healthcare system in America. It's changed dramatically just in the 23 years I've been a physician, as far as it's gotten a lot tighter. Like it's not a given that if you're a doctor, you're going to make money. I mean, why are internal medicine doctors doing plastic surgery? Well, they're doing it for the money. They're doing it for the money. There's no other reason. Why are they having to do that? They're a doctor, they're an internal medicine doctor or OBGYN or whatever they are. Why aren't they doing their own job to make money? Well, it's gotten tighter. We hear that all the time about, the issues with our healthcare system, which I still think is the best show out there. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast we could do.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason people come to the United States to get their healthcare. It's a great system if you have access and if you can navigate the insurance companies, which has become a challenge year after year. But I think that's one part of it. People are practicing outside of their scope, which is how I call it, practicing outside your scope for money. They're doing it for money. They're doing it to avoid insurance because these procedures are cash pay. It's a lot easier to have someone pay you directly than wait 6 months for an insurance company that's going to deny your claim or, make you fight for it. And then also they can get away with it. Like I think to me, like the laws are way too lenient on who can do what in a private office. Like, I mean, by the law, like if I can get someone to sign a consent for it, I can do any surgery that I want. I find someone to do the anesthesia, or maybe I just do local anesthesia. Doesn't matter if I'm properly trained by the law. There's nothing that's going to stop me from doing something that I've never done before. And that's a problem. That's how these people do this, you know.
Right. So, and patients are vulnerable and
Uh-huh.
can be gullible, not because it's their fault, but just because no one's giving them the information to know how to be a good
It's
consumer.
not their job to, decipher the technicalities of certifications and whatnot. Like it's impossible. Like, I mean, again, most physicians don't know which boards are legitimate, what's facility credentialing is legitimate. Like, how are they going to know? Like, it's not their responsibility to know. It's the responsibility of the person doing the procedure to be honest and, not try to, you know, defraud people.
Yeah.
But again, there's no laws. Like, I mean, there's civil cases, which, we're both involved in those. But, depending on the state, those can be challenging. And, it's like, well, okay, yeah, I had to pay out some money through my malpractice carrier, but then they just carry on doing the same thing. I mean, I tell patients that, if you're really wrong, like go to the medical board. The medical board can put an end to someone, or put an end to their career. And I think that I actually uh, I've been contacted by the Texas Medical Board about cases just for opinions and stuff. And, I think they're reasonable. Like I think the most medical boards do have the public safety, in the forefront of their mind and making sure that people are not in danger. But then also they, realize that sometimes things happen, and a physician can make a mistake and they're still redeemable. But, a lot of these cases that you probably see and that I've seen, like there's no redeeming. These people don't need to be practicing medicine.
Right. 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 Yeah. Totally agree. So you got, bad doctor cases. And, you know, what I've said is that there's good doctors who became bad doctors because the system kind of forced them
Yeah.
into that. And that's not any excuse whatsoever.
Right. At
Because
least you can see what happened, I guess, but it's still not good.
no, it's not good at all. And it's not a good career choice
No.
to become a crook
Right.
just because life dealt you a bad blow and you went to medical school and thought you were
Yeah.
going to make a lot of money and
And
you got to pay your kids private school tuition. But another problem we have is a lack of regulation of office-based surgery procedures.
oh yes.
So anyone can do any procedure in their office with no regulation, would you say, or little
Very little
regulation?
recourse. I mean, there is some regulation on what you can do in an office, but it's pretty loose and there's no one really checking. If you try to do too much in the office and someone reports you to the medical board, then that might garner an investigation, which potentially could get you shut down. But a lot of people are just dancing around the edges. The worst part is, like, at least in my field, what I see the most, is like, say you're, I don't know, internal medicine doctor, you're general surgeon, you want to do a tummy tuck. No surgery center is going to give you privileges for that. Why? Because they have a medical executive committee, which is going to want you to be trained at ACGME plastic surgery program and have a board certification that you don't have. So what they do is they do these things in their office where they can get away with it. Well, it's often hard, for them to find anesthesiologists that are willing to do it, right? I mean, no respectable anesthesiologist is going to want to be involved in a case where somebody's doing something outside their scope. In fact, I have a lawsuit right now that's still pending, where I'm the expert, where we sued the anesthesiologist because they basically put someone to sleep for a non-plastic surgeon, and I'm talking something way far away from plastic surgeons, to do a plastic surgery case. And I was like, no, this guy should have stopped the case. This is not appropriate. So what they end up doing in the office, they do a lot of local anesthesia stuff, which is dangerous. I mean, we
Yes.
see deaths all the time that we talk about on my podcast where, someone got just too much local anesthetic, which causes heart arrhythmias, cardiac arrest, so on and so forth. But yeah, is the regulation not enough? No one's checking it. There's not enough regulation and no one's checking in on it,
Yeah.
unless something really bad happens. If somebody dies, then maybe someone will take a look at it. But that's kind of what it takes these days for something to really be done, which is sad.
It's a serious red flag. And, again, back to patients being vulnerable and gullible, patients oftentimes think, like, well, medicine has advanced to the point where these things can be safely done in an office. Isn't that great? Because who wants to go be admitted to the hospital? Who wants to go through all that? I can just go to my doctor's office.
Mhm.
But very dangerous, potentially,
Yeah.
in the wrong hands.
I'll tell you this, I personally would not want to have surgery in an office OR. I might do it if I knew if I knew the surgeon really well, knew the facility. Knowing what I know, there's just too many corners that could be cut. I
Mhm.
sure wouldn't allow someone I didn't know very well to do any procedure on me in an office-based setting. Like something where I was getting anesthetics.
Yeah,
I just wouldn't do it. I mean, that should give people pause, right?
right,
Knowing what I know, this is my world. It's like, yeah, I really just don't like office ORs that much.
right.
I mean, there's not that oversight. There's not that regulation. There's not J-code. There's not the Quad AC, which are the governing boards that said this facility is run correctly. They're
Yeah,
doing the right things. And so, we see this a lot with plastic surgery where somebody will have something in a surgery center, something goes wrong, and they're like, well, why are they doing the surgery center? Well, that's actually the safest place to do it. Because if you do it in the hospital, one, it's cost prohibitive for out-of-pocket procedures. It's
mhm,
just too expensive to do. But also you have all the resistant bacteria in the hospital. Every hospital's got resistant bacteria. Doesn't mean they're in every room, but there's always that chance.
yep,
Then the other alternative is an office-based OR where there's really no oversight or regulation. I think that's probably the worst. And then the surgery center is kind of that sweet spot where it's regulated, but there's not a lot of sick people. So that's where I think that, elective stuff is probably the safest to have done. And I think that
right.
the research backs me up on that. I'm a research guy. It's like,
Yeah,
what does the research say?
right,
So
exactly. Well, I think, one of the biggest concerns is if something goes south, are there ACLS certified providers on site to provide resuscitation? And you'd never think to ask this, but shockingly, do you have the equipment available
you know about
to
an office OR
resuscitate me?
setting?
Well, that for sure, but even in an ambulatory surgery
Oh,
center, if
yeah.
they're regulated,
The
that's
ambulatory surgery center will have everything outside of, sometimes they don't have blood products. In fact, we were talking about a case a couple weeks ago on my show where this lady found some plastic surgeon that agreed to do 6 procedures at once. I
mhm,
limit people to 2. I was like, pick your favorite 2. That's it. No more. It's not safe. Well, this surgeon did 6, and shockingly, the patient bled to death.
mhm.
Uh, and they were mentioning, well, the surgery center didn't have blood products. Well, yeah, surgery centers don't carry blood products. You're not supposed to do things there where you're going to need blood.
Right,
Like the most
right.
blood I ever lose in a case, and I do, and I'm talking like all day cases, maybe 100 cc's or 200. That's nothing. I mean, the average
Mhm.
person has 5,000 cc's of blood. So, that's like 2 to 3%. That's like a max amount. Um,
Yeah,
so they don't need blood products, but then you get sometimes this, like in this particular case where, uh, the surgeon just makes a really bad decision and then the facility let them do it. The facility would be on the hook
yeah,
for that case, 100%. Like they should not have allowed that to happen.
yeah.
They'll open up their checkbooks as they should and, maybe get shut down. I don't know.
Well, it's alarming in the office-based setting. And to be clear, and I've seen this in our own where our law firm is, there's more and more medical practices
Mm.
moving in there. And you think, what is the plan? Well, the plan's called 911.
Oh, like an
Uh,
office OR?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it is, and that, I mean, that can be a problem. Where I've seen it be a real problem, and this is another reason I don't like office ORs. I've seen several cases now where a patient gets into trouble and the surgeon refuses to call 911. In fact, there was one that got arrested and actually went to jail for that. Like the patient got too much
Mm-hmm.
local anesthetic. They started having arrhythmias. And the staff in the office was like, we need to call 911. The guy's like, no, I got this. I got this.
Mm-hmm.
He's like calling his anesthesia buddy, be like, hey, what do I do here? And the
Right.
anesthesia guy's like, call 911.
Right.
And like enough time goes by and then the patient ends up brain dead.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, that's it. Yeah. I just don't, I'm not a big fan of office procedures and office OR. There's too many variables for me.
Yeah. If
So
something goes wrong, I want somebody to be able to call a code and the
yeah,
resuscitation
right.
team is
Yeah.
there.
There's like a crash cart and people that know how to use
Yes.
it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not going to happen like in an office setting. It's just not.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you'll occasionally get the people there that, maybe be ACLS certified, but like they haven't run a code in 20 years or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's right.
I caution people about doing office-based stuff. If it's minor, that's one thing. Like if you need a mole removed, sure, I'll do that in my office.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to go wrong there. When you talk about major surgeries like tummy tucks, Brazilian butt lifts, which I hate those surgeries, are not good. And they're doing them in an office setting. It's just it's a recipe for disaster. Like there's too many variables. There's too many potential problems that can happen. And when you start stacking those risks, eventually it hits a critical mass and a bad outcome happens.
Well, that's a great segue into something I wanted to ask you about, which is are most surgeries in general, and then we can talk about plastic surgery specifically, in today's day and age, are surgeries generally safe? And then what are the most common things that take them out of the safe zone?
I mean, in general, surgeries are very, very safe. There's lots of data on, your risk of mortality from just having a surgery. They usually break them down by class, right? Because it's not fair to compare a level 1 trauma, multiple gunshot wound surgery risk of death versus I'm going to have, a mole removed or my
Mm-hmm.
gallbladder out. But yeah, like nowadays the technology is there and it is very safe. Even in the years I've been in practice, which I got my MD in '02, is when I started my general surgery training. Back then we were um, a lot more protective as far as getting a bunch of tests before surgery to make sure someone didn't have some underlying problem because the surgery itself carried stress. It was hard on your heart, it was hard on your lungs. And say you're in your 60s or early 70s and you're having surgery, like the anesthesia itself could cause you to have a heart attack. Not so much anymore. Like the anesthetics have gotten a lot better. It's a lot less stressful on our system. In fact, people are surprised. They'll come in. I mean, I get patients in their 60s and 70s all the time, and they're like, do you need to do a pre-op workup? And so I ask them basic questions about, have you had a heart attack? Can you walk up a flight of stairs? Nope. Then you're good.
Yeah.
And the research will back you up on that. So surgery is very, very safe. Of course, the type of procedure really weighs into that. There is data on what are the most risky procedures. Well, obviously things like cardiac surgery, risky, trauma surgery, risky, things where there can be massive blood loss, more risky, vascular, some obstetric stuff. When you talk about things like plastic surgery, they are extremely safe. Usually bad outcomes are due to bad decision making. For example, the girl that we were just talking about a minute ago, that's 6 surgeries at once.
Yeah.
Now, it's not her responsibility to know that having 6 surgeries at once is a bad idea. And in fact, she went to multiple surgeons who refused her before she found the one that agreed to do it. But it's the surgeon's job to tell her, no, that's dangerous. The more blood you lose, it becomes cumulative and the risk starts to get multiplicative instead of additive. And, so that'll go down as a surgery death and a ding against the numbers of plastic surgery. But in reality, it shouldn't.
Right.
Like that's not like a normal case. That's a really bad decision tree that will end up being a death. So when you look at people who actually follow the rules and do things the right way, like the risk of death is insanely low, in 16 years of doing elective type procedures, I've only had one patient that ever got in any danger, and it was somebody who just bled long after the surgery was after, and we figured out very quickly, got him into the hospital, into the ER, into surgery within a couple hours, and they were fine. But like there was a little bit of risk there; they lost some blood. But that's really kind of the worst you should see in our field. Like we're not doing things where the surgery itself should be dangerous, and generally it revolves around people who make bad decisions.
Well, I think that's really important, because we don't want to be fear mongering and
Right.
getting people saying, well, I listened to this podcast and now I'm so freaked out that I don't want to go have
Yeah, you
um,
should.
a necessary
Yeah.
procedure or whatever. So, um, but it's like a lot of professions. It's always the bottom, whatever you want to say, the bottom 10%, the bottom
Right.
20% that are causing all the problems.
And going back to that thing you said about people being scared of surgery, I have people tell me that all the time. And I'm a statistics guy, right? Like, it's like people being afraid of flying. A
Right,
lot of people are afraid to fly, but it's much safer to fly than it is to walk down your street in your neighborhood.
right.
And so I tell people, and they say, oh, I'm about to have surgery. I'm nervous. I'm like, listen, it was more dangerous for you to drive here today, this morning,
Hmm.
than to go under the anesthesia. Like, statistically, like,
Yeah.
you can pull that data up. And it's like, that's the way you got to think about it. It's like, yeah, can something happen? Sure. But statistically, this is insanely safe as long as people are doing what they should.
And probably statistically much safer than driving on these Dallas
Oh
highways
yeah,
you'll
man.
see
You want to go
back
out
here.
there? That's like Mad Max out there, man. It's like
Exactly.
crazy.
Everybody driving 80 miles an hour
Yeah.
down the North Dallas Tollway while
I
texting
mean, if you're going
or,
80, you're getting run over by people
right.
that's getting SUVs, man. It's crazy.
That's right. I moved here from my small town in Oklahoma 30 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always thought I was kind of a, not aggressive, but I was a good
Yeah.
driver. And
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I'm like,
Dude.
I'm doing 70 and I'm getting run over here.
Dallas is
But
like so crazy. I mean, as far I've lived all over the United States and then over Europe. Like driving here is just a different animal. Like
yeah,
it's like a competitive sport. Like
right.
everybody's got these massive vehicles and like they're not afraid to go like 100 down the freeway. It's just wild.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to like go on a
No,
tangent
that's
there.
okay. I was just in Oklahoma visiting family, and there's one of the turnpikes there. I think it's the Indian Nation Turnpike or whatever. The speed limit's 80. So really, technically, if you're 90, you're just 10
Yeah,
miles
you're
over the
fine.
speed limit or whatever. It's
Yeah.
kind of like Oklahoma's Audubon,
Yeah.
but anyway. But well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Um, What I've had a lot of doctors on, and I hope to have more doctors on because I want to hear what's ailing doctors. Um, and we've talked a lot about just rogue doctors, bad doctors. They're bad people. They're crooks. And everybody knows who they are.
Mhm.
An orthopedic trauma surgeon I know, he said, let me put it to you this way, Kay. He said, there's the top 20%, and those 20%, they know each other and they refer to each other.
That does happen.
There's the bottom 20%, they know each other and they refer to each other. And then there's everybody else in the middle that are well trained, they're good people, they're good doctors, they're staying kind of within the boundaries or whatever. Um, but there's also the good doctors that went down to the dark side
Mm,
because of what they may call a moral injury,
mhm.
or, they worked in a hospital system, they got pressure from an employer, they just were overworked to death and burned out, and they went bad. Do you hear of that?
That's a great question that I probably don't know the answer to. You wonder why some of the people who practice out of scope do the things they do. And I'm sure that I'm sure some of them just like say, oh, well, I got my, MD now. I'm just gonna like do this because it's the easy path, like do, cosmetic type procedures for cash instead of do what I should do, which is my
Mhm.
specialty. Or maybe they were in a hospital system and got burned out and they're like, I'm gonna try something different. Yeah, I don't know exactly what makes people do it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's money,
Yeah.
but what leads them to this is the way I'm gonna make my money doing something I shouldn't versus, hey, I could be like a legitimate, medicine doctor in a hospital or whatnot. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, who knows? I mean, that's a good question. That's not something I've ever thought about. It's like, why aren't they just doing what they should be?
Well,
Maybe they've had issues, in the past, or maybe they're burned out. I mean, I'm not sure. That's a good question.
and for some people that are just outright crooks, there's trends. Like, I guess it was maybe 20 or 25 years ago or whatever, that was the pill mill era. So a doctor could be an owner of a pain clinic in a
Uh-huh.
strip shopping center, and they were making
Yeah.
money hand over fist or
Right.
whatever. So, would you say today it be medical spas?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, med spas have really exploded. We talk about in fact, I have a med spa, so I own my own med spa, which I feel like is very, very safe and well run because I'm actually very, involved in how it runs. But most med spas are not.
Hmm.
A med spa should by law have a medical director who is ultimately responsible for what happens there. But the reality is that doesn't happen. They will have a name of a doctor who receives a check every month to be the med spa director,
Hmm.
but oftentimes they're physicians who know nothing about the procedures that are done there. They've never had any training in those procedures, and they're just literally a title to keep the doors open. That
Right.
happens all the time. And so then what happens is you get these mid-levels, like a nurse, or sometimes maybe just the owner of the med spa doing procedures they shouldn't do. And they have a director who's absent, and they're just doing whatever they want. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot more of these horror stories about med spas these days. We talk about them all the time on my show. Fortunately, a lot of the med spa procedures are things that it's hard to actually harm someone. You have to almost go out of your way to misuse the
Hmm.
machine. They make a lot of these machines idiot proof these days.
Yeah.
Like we have two machines. We have two of the best machines for skin tightening and resurface in our office. And I always tell the nurse, like, yeah, these things are idiot proof. Like you'd have to like try to harm someone with them. Now, you
Right.
may not get
Yeah.
the best result if you don't use it properly, but it actually is hard to harm someone. I think that's the only reason that we don't see med spa disaster stories 24/7 in the news, is because even though there's a lot of people out there doing stuff they shouldn't, they're not necessarily harming people, you know.
Right.
But yeah, med spas, it's like they just blew up out of nowhere. And you have to be careful. Like, so a lot of these med spas are fly by night. We're always doing stories about, ones that are using black market Botox, or they're using products that aren't, properly regulated, or people doing procedures they're not trained to do. I would tell someone that if they're going to go to a med spa, like most importantly is, ask about the medical director. They should be able to say, Dr. So-and-so is the medical director. Like, well, how do they come around there? Like, are they involved?
Right.
If they say something like, oh, well, yeah, they come by every once in a while, then
Hmm.
I would be nervous. I mean, if you call my med spa and say, he's a med director, it was Dr. Herman. Is he there? He's like, yeah, he's there almost every day, either, in the med spa or in his office.
Yeah.
It's all together. He's very involved. And
Right.
that makes a difference. Like, because I don't want anything unsafe to happen. And, ultimately it's my career on the line. And so like, I'm very involved with it.
Right. Don't think about convenience or cost as your number one thing if you're the patient. All right.
Yeah.
I got a Groupon coupon to go
Right.
to whatever.
Right. Groupons for like plastic surgery is a bad idea. As they say, you
Exactly.
never want like your pilot and your surgeon to be the lowest bidder. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's
That's
very true.
exactly right.
If it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Well, let me ask you
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
a question.
Mm,
Um, you probably don't sit around and ponder these things like I do, but maybe you do.
maybe.
What's medicine going to look like 10 years from now?
I mean, it's going to be more corporate for sure. I don't think that we're going to go to a single payer system. I mean, we could do a whole segment on that. I just don't
Yeah.
see America going single payer. Like the problem with that, just in a nutshell, without going on forever, the American populace expect a consumer level of healthcare, and single payer is not that. I don't
Mhm.
think that patients would want what single payer systems would bring, which is waiting, denial of stuff. I mean, we're seeing it a little bit already in certain procedures or
Mhm.
getting pushback from insurance companies. But for all intents and purposes, you can still get what you want in the United States, if you're insured, right? So I just can't believe that we're going to go to single payer. So I think you're just going to see more corporatization of medicine, which has been terrible. Like, when you look at things like the healthcare expenditure in the United States, and you look at how much it's gone up like this, here's doctor salaries,
Mhm.
here's how much medicine costs, here's the corporate costs. of medicine.
Yeah.
Like it used to be that like the hospital was run, it had a CEO and it had like a stripped down administrative. And now it's like it's these huge corporations and it's adding a lot of cost to the system. It's adding bureaucracy. I mean, I think every doctor would agree it's made it worse, not better.
Yep.
They basically push out anyone who wants to, be like a solo practitioner because they'll, close down referral patterns. I'm a little bit of exempt from that because, plastic surgeon is not something most hospitals will hire. So I can still run my solo practice right next to a hospital and I get referrals. But if I was like, say, an orthopedic surgeon or a general surgeon, I would get no referrals from anyone in that system. And like 90% of the doctors in my vicinity are involved in the system.
Yes.
So you're going to see that just get worse and worse. And I think it is to the detriment of medicine. Like, I mean, I always say the healthcare system's broken, but it's still the best game in town as far as like compared to other countries. But yeah, I wish I could predict. All I can say is I think it's going to be more corporatized, even worse than it is now.
Meaning the risk for doctors and hence patients is that the business people, what do they say? It's like the suits versus the lab coats, the suits versus the scrubs. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And you're going to have the suits running. Of course, we have a prohibition on corporate practice of medicine in Texas and elsewhere, but that is a myth, in my opinion, because we know that there is business, corporate, whatever.
Yeah, THR is a huge corporation, Medical City. Like, I mean, I get what you're saying, but these are corporations in and themselves.
And they do influence medical decision making.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah. I fight against the corporate stuff all the time in my, there's things will pop up where, and this is a problem when you get too old. It's like you've been around too long and you realize that things are being done from a business decision instead of a patient decision. I've seen that and I fought it and I'm just like, guys, this is wrong. Like it really, I mean, it's a problem. I think that medicine was better when it was just doctors seeing patients.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hate to be the guy that's like, oh, it was better in the old days. It was better in the old days. Like you didn't see the problems that you see now. Like the healthcare wasn't as expensive. Yeah, I don't know. I hate to say that my career is one that is like on the decline, but it is on the decline.
Yeah.
Like it's undeniable.
Well, I think there's something running in parallel with this, which is artificial intelligence. And it's not a thing of the future. It is here and now. And I saw just this morning, there's a new, I'm blanking on the name of it, but it was like there was a survey and it's 80% of doctors are using this doctors only AI tool, where they're going into their own AI that's just for healthcare providers to say, patient came in with these symptoms, I'm thinking this is my differential diagnosis. What do you think?
Everyone's using it. I'm a big AI adopter. I've always been interested in AI since I was a kid. I was a computer nerd when I was a kid, and I was trying to use the crappy A's back then. I mean, everyone's using it. I think that the proper place for it is like streamlining the enormous amount of paperwork.
Yeah.
Like that's a good use for AI. It's like streamlining the stuff that doctors hate doing, like filling out insurance paperwork. Like that's a good place for it. I have used it a couple times, like for actual medical stuff. I'm like, geez, what is that nerve that runs right by the thing? And I mean, to me, that's no different than using a Google search.
Yeah.
I personally, in my personal life, I've replaced Google searches with AI.
Yeah.
And so I use it like that. I mean, as far as it taking jobs, I don't know. We talk about that on my show all the time. I think things like radiology, pathology, definitely going to be a potential risk. I'm not sure that it's coming as fast as some people think it is, like when it looks to like, because to me, that would be the obvious ones like pathology, radiology, image interpretation. But like some of the recent studies on that have shown that there's still a long way for it to go. And, it's going to be like the question of who's at risk when the AI is wrong. Like, is it the AI company? Is it the hospital? Is it everyone? I mean, you're probably licking your chops at this. Like, it's going to be the Wild West out there. Yeah, I do think that AI has been being incorporated. I don't think it's going to replace doctors soon. Now, eventually, it probably is going to probably cause streamlining of staff where it's like a few doctors overseeing AI,
Yes. And bedside care in terms of things that could be replicated by a human. There's a thing now where they have a robotic phlebotomist
Mhm.
where you go in, you put your arm in there, and,
It draws your blood for you.
yeah,
Is it good? Does
I
it
have
work?
no idea. I haven't used it. I would be a little wigged out, I think, to just be like, put my arm in there
Yeah,
and let it
let this
start
machine
stabbing
take your
away.
blood. It's safe. I promise. You're gonna be fine.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, it's funny. Elon Musk was saying that within I can't remember what he said, like 3 years that the Optimus robots will be operating better than the best surgeons. And I was like, I like Elon Musk. I really think a lot
Mhm.
of him. He's wrong on that. Like I mean, eventually, like decades in the future, yes, but we did a whole discussion about that, about just like the just enormous amount of on the fly decision making that you need to do surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, AI is good at crunching data. I'm I try to use it as best I can and push its limits, but there's no way that it has the decision capability to do surgery. Not anytime soon, I don't think. Although it is exponentially getting better.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much you use it, but like it's even since like ChatGPT launched, whatever 3 years ago, like it's gotten so much better.
I really pride myself on it because, in my law firm, I'm the most senior level person, which is a nice way of saying I'm the old
Right.
lady
The most
there,
experienced.
the most experienced or
Yeah.
whatever. And I love showing my AI chops to the youngsters because
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
oh, well, you could build a Claude agent for that and they could
Uh-huh.
blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what? Are you serious?
Yeah.
But I'm fascinated by it. And I think there's some potential for improved patient safety outcomes, which is what I'm all about. And I had a guest on my podcast who is a fascinating person. He's a Johns Hopkins PhD human factors engineer.
Mm.
Um, and he looks at systems. How do humans function? How is it, for example, that we still have wrong site surgeries? How is it that we still have retained foreign objects?
Yeah.
And when you have
Yeah, human error.
humans, are
Yeah.
you going to have human error or can we engineer out human error? And with AI coming in, is there a possibility we can drastically reduce humans making errors?
Possibly. I mean, I don't know how far you push the limits of AI. You can push it to make errors still. Now, obviously, it's going to keep getting better and better. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question of whether or not AI will be able to streamline that. It's possible. I
Yeah.
don't think it's like around the corner like people think. It's one thing to say, okay, AI has the capability to, you know, look at massive amounts of data and make decisions, but when people's lives are on the line, the stakes
Yeah.
are a little higher. Like
Hmm.
you're going to have to test the waters, and it's going to take many years for adoption of this,
Yeah.
because a mistake is not just oops. It's like, oh, that patient's dead and now there's a $30 million lawsuit because it
Right.
happened, right? So I mean, AI is definitely working its way into medicine. I mean, you see that, I mean, already. I personally don't use it in my practice. Like I don't use like an AI bot on my website, or I don't use it for the medical record keeper or anything. But if people are, like, it's out there, but they're definitely not using it on things that are life and death yet. And I just think that's going to take time,
Yeah.
personally.
Well, I think my concern with it is this. You've got the intersection of more and more corporatization, more and more private equity coming in to make business decisions. And that's not all bad, but they are making business decisions. How can we drive up the profits?
Yeah.
Driving up the profits means, can we do, more procedures? Can we charge more for things? Can we cut the overhead? And that with the introduction of AI, if they can replace a segment of the workforce, that boosts profits. And there's got to be somebody in there saying, what about the patient?
Yeah, we just did a segment on I forgot his name. He's a CEO of like a big hospital chain in New York, and he was on some business. I can't remember if it was a podcast or like some sort of seminar. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm ready to replace our radiologists with like AI right now."
Mhm.
And man, there was so much backlash about that. Because like you're just exactly what you said. He's ready to, and he even said it would save the hospital so much money
Mhm.
to get rid of the radiologist. And then he just got roasted because like there's all these like studies out now saying that the AI programs that were looking at films were basically hallucinating, which is a problem with AI, and that there's a lot of huge safety concerns, and that the only thing this proves is that hospital administrators are willing to put patients at risk if it'll save people money.
Yeah.
And, there is some truth in that. I mean,
Yeah.
not saying that all hospital administrators are bad, but, I feel like that the people looking out for patients are doctors, not hospital admins.
Yeah.
I think pretty much anyone would agree with that. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because we just were talking about that the other day.
Right. Well, it's true. I catch my AI hallucinating,
Yep.
and I'm polite. That's what they say, be nice to your AI because you don't know, they might turn on you. But I'll
Right.
say, well, actually, that's not correct, blah, blah, blah. And then it's so darn nice to you.
Yeah,
It's
it's like,
like,
oh, thanks for telling me
great
that.
catch.
Good
You're
catch.
so
How smart
smart.
you are. Yeah.
Just love it. Oh my gosh, you're
Yeah.
nicer to me than most people. Um, but anyway, well, tell me,
Mhm.
when you're not in the operating room, when you're not seeing patients, you're doing a podcast of your own. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so been doing podcasts now almost 4 years. It's called Nip Talk. It's we show it on YouTube and Facebook, and so the gist of it is like informing patients about things that may potentially benefit them if they are interested in the world of aesthetics or plastic surgery. So we talk about procedures, and we talk about a lot of things that happen in the news, like these, bad outcomes, and like, why did this bad outcome happen? Well, it's because the doctor was not a plastic surgeon, or, maybe they went to Costa Rica to get plastic surgery and something bad happened. And so, yeah, I just really try to inform people about what's what, because as we talked about earlier, patients don't know, what's right, what's wrong, what's legit, what's fake, what's safe, what's dangerous. And so my goal is that, the show becomes, oh, I'm thinking about this. What does Nip Talk say about it? And,
Right.
they can come and, we've done hundreds and hundreds of segments now about all sorts of topics. And I like to call it informative entertainment. We try to make it fun. I have a great co-host, Kaylee Dion. She was the meteorologist here in Dallas for a while, and I think nationally as well. And so she's my co-host, and we have a good time with it. And
Yeah.
so it's something I think that people enjoy watching and learn something from. And I've had a good time doing it. I really like, and it's good for me, honestly. Like, I mean, people ask me, why do you do this? Well, it's good for branding.
Yeah.
It makes you a thought leader in your field when you talk about things. And yeah, I've just had a great experience with it. That's probably some of the
Yeah.
reasons you do what you do. It's to educate people, and it's good for your brand. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's like, a thing or two about a thing or two
I know we've been
after a
around a
certain
while. Yeah,
time, right?
yeah,
And we live in this information age where people are seeking information,
hmm,
and information is readily available. So I really encourage people to go out, get the information, be an
absolutely.
informed consumer.
I love it when patients come in. They're like, "Oh, I've done research and I have questions." I'm like, that's good. Like that to me means that you are playing a part in your medical journey, and that means you're gonna have a better outcome.
Yeah.
Like if you know what's going on, and for me, like what I try to do, not to talk about my own practice, but I really believe in patient education. Like people come in, I want to talk to them for like 30 or 40 minutes about
Mhm.
like this is what this procedure means and what
Mhm.
it does, and so, when patients, are educating themselves, it's just only better for them.
Yeah.
Some doctors don't like it. They get offended if like someone says, "Oh, well, what about this? I read that." And, I'm not like that. If somebody says, "Oh, I read this," I'm like, "Oh, let's talk about it."
And I'm sure you would agree with me, but if you go to any kind of a doctor and they don't want to answer your questions,
Yeah,
or
run
they
away.
dismiss you, yeah,
Yeah,
you've
run
got
away.
choices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Like, they're, you always hear about like, oh, the physician that's so mean is the best physician. Well, I don't know about that. Like, I mean, there are people out there that are kind of gruff that I know are really good doctors. But I mean, I think that, there's a lot of data to support that good patient-doctor relationship does weigh heavily in outcomes. And so,
Yes.
I think that if you're in a position where you're picking a doctor, obviously, like if you're going to the ER, like you get who you get, right? But like if you're picking a doctor, find someone that, feel like really will listen to you and, you can talk to and, you're not just a number. Like those are the good ones, right? Like they're the
Right.
ones that are looking out for you as the patient. And it doesn't mean that, something, may not happen, complications can happen, but, at least you feel like they're, an advocate for you and not an advocate for the bottom line of the hospital or
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, the good ones are still out
Yeah.
there, and you're one of them. And
Oh, well,
it's
thank you. I appreciate that.
nice to meet you. And
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's
it's
been awesome.
so hard to get a doctor to sit down and talk to you for more than 10 minutes. So you've been
Oh,
very
no.
gracious with your time. I
Oh, no.
appreciate it so
I
much.
enjoy this stuff. I like going and when you do the podcast, like sometimes it's fun to be the guest, right?
Yeah,
And go on a show and hey, let's come on our show sometime.
I'll do it.
That'd be a lot of fun. So
I'll do it. You can put me in the hot seat, swear me in, and
yeah, it's ours is kind of, it's very laid back. Yeah. You'd enjoy it.
I love it. Well, thank you so
That's been a
much.
pleasure. Yeah,
Appreciate you
thank you
so
so
much.
much. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you. Thank you again for listening in to another episode of AdvoKAYte, Holding Healthcare Accountable. I just really enjoyed having Dr. Bruce Herman as my guest for this episode. It's kind of funny because most of us don't ever have the privilege of getting a doctor to sit down and talk to us unless we're in the examination room and they're in and out in 5 minutes. So it's really been cool to talk to a doctor and see that we actually agree on a lot of things that affect patient safety. So thanks again for joining. Please subscribe, tell your friends to listen in, spread the word so we can hold healthcare accountable and make the American healthcare system safer for all of us. Thanks again.